Oh, all right. We are in it. Let's do the intro.
We're doing it live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here on Yes.
And yes.
It's clearly on the. Today we have the great and powerful comedian. Yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And today, our conversation is sponsored by PXG Golf. Oh, man, am I blurring out the sponsor? This is terrible.
No, it's good right there.
But they're a legitimate golf extraordinary. They're insanely bougie, luxurious golfing, and I'm going to be the future PXG pro. So if you are a golfer, I actually highly recommend their attire. Their attire is actually very sick. It's basically like Under Armour, but dope and cool and even more flexible, and it's amazing. So go visit PXG for your golf attire. They do have golf clubs that are cool, but they also cost $4,500 for a bag of golf clubs, which is fucking nuts. So golf clubs and go golf. Dannielle, were you ever traumatized by someone who played golf in your life?
Just myself, usually, like just self-harm on that. No, I've played golf. I used to be in the corporate world, and that was a standard thing that you did was golf scrambles and playing golf and going to Top Golf and going to the driving range and doing all that stuff. I bought my clubs from a yard sale for $100.
That's a new set online of whatever brand. $4,500.
Wait, Max, you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you need to go sideways.
Hold on. But yeah, no, I was freaking out about the price of their golf clubs because you can go even if you want like a new set of clubs. Well, I'll just hold it, whatever. If you need a new set of clubs, you can just go on Amazon. Usually like 200 to 400 tops, tops, and you got a new set of clubs. But $4,500.
I mean, they must be good clubs.
Yeah.
So prove your game by at least 2 strokes.
It sounds like you know a lot about golf. Did you do a lot of golfing?
I mean, a standard amount for that, that job. I don't know, probably once a month kind of thing. I did have, oh my God, I had one really, it was embarrassing for me, but one, I'm a much better drinker and driver of golf carts than I am actually playing golf. But I have a couple golf trophies where, I got longest drive and stuff like that for women. But I was playing on a course here in Lexington, and it was a par 3, and I hit the ball, and I looked for the ball for 20 minutes, literally. Like, could not find it. It was like 3 inches from the hole. I almost made a hole in one on a par 3. But it was so unbelievable that I never would have looked at it.
Just didn't even go down there. It's like, it's not over there. There's no way.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up with the drinking because in the corporate world, golfing is very code word for let's day drink and get obliterated.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's for some reason the only socially acceptable place to, as long as you're wearing your polo and your appropriate golf attire, you can shotgun beers in between holes. After the 9th hole, you go to the bar.
Yeah.
Sounds right. Well,
I don't know, but I mean, I don't work there anymore, so it don't matter. But I had a bottle in my desk. Like, that was a pretty, it's like, oh, it's noon. You know what I mean? It's 1 o'clock. This is an appropriate time to make a little mixer.
Yeah. So are you still engaged with the corporate world?
No, I'm doing comedy full time.
Oh,
really?
And yeah. So, yeah, I made that leap this year, and it's not easy, but it's happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess before we get too deep into it, why don't you, I guess, give your little spiel about who you are and yeah.
So my name's Dannielle Wornall. You can follow me on Instagram at Dannielle Wornall Comic. Dannielle does have 2 N's right next to each other, which fucks everybody up. Am I allowed to curse on this? Does that matter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's good because I'm not good at not doing that.
You piece of fucking live show. What the hell are you doing? This is America. We do not cuss.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I'm a stand-up comic. And I'm doing something kind of cool right now. So there was a comic that set a record back in 2013, Sammy Obeid, and he did the most consecutive days of stand-up comedy, that was like recorded. And he did 1,001 days. So I am actively working to break his record.
Oh my gosh.
Today is 113 days in of consecutive stand-up. So
like every night?
Every day, yeah.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I'm going for 1,500 days. So I'm trying to break the record, but I'm also trying to break the record by more than a year.
Damn.
So
Damn.
yeah, that's where we're at. We're day one. Today's day 113, and I get a show tonight in Lexington. It's a Lex Out Loud production at High Proof Hideaway, and I'll be featuring for the very funny Roy Haber. So,
oh yeah,
congrats.
Yeah.
So, how do you get daily spots?
It's a lot of grinding.
I was gonna say, like, how much traveling?
A lot of travel. It's a lot of travel. I'm fortunate right now. I've actually got a lot of feature gigs on the books for like the next 8 weeks. So a lot of weekends. And then the thing is like, so the stipulations for the streak, it's like shows and open mics count. So I fill in the show schedule with open mics. And it helped that, for about 88 days, something like that. I was actually in New York, and you can get up there 365 days a year. So that made it a lot easier. But the thing that made that hard was actually coming back. Like I wasn't just doing one spot a day. I mean, there were some days when it's like I was exhausted and I needed a light day. So I might do one show or something. But, I was doing 4 or 5 shows a week, and then, marathoning mics every day on top of that. So I was doing, anywhere from 20 to 30 spots a week for 3 months. So now, it got to a point where it's like before the streak started, if I went a couple days, like if I went more than a day or so without getting on stage somewhere, I felt rusty. You know what I mean? I just didn't feel loose in the material. And now it's like doing one spot a day. It's like I feel rusty. But I had a weekend at the Caravan Comedy Club in Louisville this past weekend, and I featured for Rich Reagan's. And so I was actually doing 35 minutes, which is a little heavy on a feature spot. Like typically 25 is.
How much time was Rich doing?
Rich was doing about 45 to 50.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he was definitely very generous with the time, and he's, let me cook on stage. And so, yeah, I think 30 is usually the cap that they go with, but, I was doing about 35 every show, and, just getting to stretch. And I don't know, that's kind of the difference between like being on the road and being in New York is like in New York, you can get on stage a lot, but getting a lot of time is difficult. Like,
you're on 5 minutes spots.
Yeah, 5-minute spots, or like, even on a showcase show, you might get 8 minutes. You know what I mean? Whereas like here, that might be a guest spot. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then even headlining and closing out shows, you're looking at, 12 to 15-minute sets. I think the most you get at the clubs, even when you're, a regular at the, A-list clubs, 20 minutes. So being on the road, you can get more time on stage, so you can really develop the material. You can stay in the bits longer. You get to stretch that through line and really push it. And there's positives to both. And it's like New York's obviously like the mecca for comedy. You go to LA to get famous, you go to New York to get good, right? Like that's what they say.
I love that.
So yeah, you do. You get good. You get feedback really quickly as far as the audience, and you can take what you learned in one set and go to another spot and do another spot and rework it. And, so you do that there. But, on the road is where you really get to explore like your voice on stage and do that kind of stuff. So you got to do both. You got to, for New York comics, they got to get out of New York and, do some road gigs and, stretch their legs. And for comics who are only on the road and they really need to get feedback on the material quickly and work and write and be inspired and, just be in it all the time. Like you need to spend time in New York. So it's like, I'm trying to find that balance, for myself. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely not easy way to live either. And
Nah, it's insane.
yeah, like that's tough. And how do you, I guess, stay in it? Like as far as mindset wise, as far as like making people laugh. Like how do you deal with all of that while traveling and constantly doing it?
Well, you gotta all the life shit that's going on, like you gotta check that at the door when
Mm.
you get to the spots. Like you gotta do a lot of work to get to the spots. Like, between travel and booking and having good headshots and doing the writing and you know what I mean, like
First
writing every
problem.
day. Like there's so much that goes into until you get to that point on the stage. And, even just like making sure your budget checks at the end of the month so that you can, buy food like or bourbon, like
Oh yeah.
those become
Or
little
fentanyl.
obstacles. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to do all that stuff. And then, but when you get on stage, you got to drop all of that. And, we've heard a lot of comics talk through the years about stage health. You know what I mean? Like when you're sick and I've had to rely on that for sure. But when you're sick and you're not feeling well, there's something that happens where you can kind of just turn that off, and get on stage. I think the only comic who really tried to rely on that and had a horrible experience was Patton Oswalt, and he talked about actively shitting his pants on stage and be like, all right, well, and here's your next comic. And that's all he did. Like he didn't do any material. He just got the hell out of there. But stage health is the real thing. But stage mental health becomes a thing too. And it's like you have to any of the stressors and any of the things you're going on, you got to drop that because you've got two jobs when you get up there. You got to make them laugh and you got to connect with them so that they give a shit about what you're talking about. And that's the only thing you can do when you're on stage. And I've definitely had some pretty shitty sets because I didn't check myself like I needed to. Luckily most of those have been at open mics or really bad shows, but nothing too career detrimental.
How did you learn?
But,
So you're in the weeds of the comedy psychology. Do you mean? I mean, obviously you get it from reps. I mean, you're already actively on the 113. You're pursuing 1500. That comes from drive. That comes from confidence. That comes from experience of wanting to do it and set that goal. But like, when did you have do you have like a direct mentorship, or have you just kind of like been online and just digesting all the information from the brilliant comics?
Both. I kind of live and breathe comedy. Honestly, it's the only thing I give a shit about. There are a few people that make that list, but it's short. But as far as like things that I want, it's the only thing that I want. So making sacrifices so that you can have that is second nature. But I read a lot. I'm a big proponent of this book, the New Comedy Bible. I literally treat it like a Bible. I take it with me everywhere. I do writing out of it. I do writing exercises, all that stuff. And I have a few comics that are much more seasoned than me and very successful that I kind of talk to on a pretty regular basis. And there's different ones I lean on for different things. Some of them I talk to about the business side and, talk through, management and talk through contracts and talk through, you know what I mean? Like how to approach different situations. And
right. There's one cave. You go to Bert Kreischer about business, but if you actually want a funny comic, you go to Tom Segura, right?
Right. Yeah. So, well, and even the comics, that I talked to you about the other stuff, it's like they're fucking hilarious. But it's kind of having different people that you check in with. Like I've got a few people in different cities. There's a producer of a comedy production company, and his name is Josh Gilmore. It's High Water Comedy Productions out of Memphis, and he and I will talk at 1-2 o'clock in the morning, and we'll go through just like the business side of things or certain strategies or from the production standpoint, what do you think about this? And so we go through that, and then I've got some comics in New York that I talk through material on. I actually, this past weekend, there was kind of a kismet thing that happened. And, Keith McGill, who's a comedian and actor and director out of Louisville, Kentucky, he popped in to the Caravan Saturday night. And he was telling me about, what he's working on and all this stuff. And, I'd heard of him, but I'd never met him. And, I was like, hey, well, based on everything you told me, if you're going to sit in and listen to my set, if you have any notes or feedback or anything, I'd love to hear it. And he was so generous and giving and on point. And he not only listened to my set, he like had this whole note in his phone with feedback.
Wow.
And I took
Yeah.
multiple pages of notes in my notebook off everything that he was saying. I just ate it up. I've never had someone break down my set like that. And it was incredible. So generous.
Amazing.
I was gonna say, that's so important to have, and I think in any artistic lane, to have like a trustworthy someone who's in the industry to give you advice, and to have that trust and like being vulnerable and having that transparency to where you're no longer egos in the way. It's just like, okay, how do I better digest this? Because what I'm discovering in the Cincinnati comedy scene is there's a lot of fragile egos. And I think that's all entertainment industry, of course. But my background in comedies, I've been digesting comedy since I was 10. And comedy's everything to me besides music. But music and comedy is literally my life. And so I got into this comedy world and comedy business, if you will, since July. And and this is Cincinnati, Ohio, like one of the smallest, but also most hungry places to do comedy right now, both comedians and people wanting to see live comedy. Is just astonishing of like, so I'm just like an objective, like, I know art is subjective, and especially comedy. No, I objectively know good fucking comedy, all right? Like, at least a good or a bad. Now, once you're in the good, there's different lanes and different levels, but, like, I know good and bad. And, like, there's so many bad comedians that think they should be headlining, thinking they should be paid regulars, thinking this, thinking that, because they know somebody who's a somebody in the Cincinnati... Go bananas. Their little cliques and their little, you got to know someone, and I know that someone, and I did open mic for that someone. But then you got these fucking, and I'm not exaggerating, brilliant, genius comedians. Young, and they're savages. They're ferocious. They're actually like, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, no one knows this kid? And then I talk to him, and I give him some shows, and he's like, and the other comedians on the shows are like, hey, you still do comedy? And then he's telling me how he got blacklisted? What? Like, you're actually funny. So, like, I have no idea what point I was trying to make there, but I guess one thing with the industry, though, is, like, being able to be open enough to take in that criticism, though.
Yeah.
Because, but that's what separates the good from the bad. Or, like, hey, you can be good and then be great. That determines on your mind state, your determination, your drive, and all that stuff, right? But the bad ones who just think they're good and in that delusional box, they will never take criticism, ever. Or they'll even say, like, oh, I'm open for suggestions. No, I'm open for this and that. And you tell them, and it's just like in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
The good comics always, they look at other comedians as inspiration, and they're always taking notes and conversating. Like, I love the post-show hang.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean that, like, post-sex-wise, but I mean, like, come on, it was a penis joke, for Pete's sake. It's not a comedy show, post-hang. Personally, my hang is pitiful. But, like...
Well, it's what you're talking about. Like, it's funny because comics, the comics that are delusional, they'll come off stage and they'll be like, oh, I killed.
Yeah, that's their comment.
Like, were you in the room?
That's all they have to offer.
No one left. You know what I mean? Like, what...
Yeah.
Like, what set were you watching? You know what I mean? Like... I don't know that you were here for that, like, but you got to do both, right? You have to do your job on stage. You have to kill on stage. You have to, be undeniably funny, but you also, outside of it, you have to stay out of drama. You have to be easy to work with. Don't be an asshole. You know what I mean? And you have to put in the work every single day. And that, like, there's thousands of comedians, most people don't ever do this job and make a living at it.
Oh,
no. You know what I mean? They don't, because they don't have all of the factors. You know what I mean? Like, either they don't put the work in every single day and do the business side of it, or they're funny, but they're maybe not funny enough. or they're hilarious and they work every day, but they're an asshole, so people don't want to work with them. And it's like you have to find that balance between all of those things, and that's then you might have a chance.
Right. Then you still might.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and the comedy, it's been such like a, who knows, like what, there's like 200 comedians maybe, as far as like super, like they're killing life like 6 figs or more. There's probably like 200 of them, maybe 500, I don't know. But I mean, what, out of 46 million anyways, the point being is everything you're talking about at the beginning of this podcast with the grind, the determination, the sacrifice, and you heard Philip's reactions to like, oh shit, you're busy, like, oh shit, you're getting it. Like, people don't understand, like, you have to, like, you got to be passionate about comedy in order to succeed in comedy. And then everything else that you said, you have to be funny, you have to be sociable, you have to have some professionalism.
Yeah.
That's another thing about the comedy business. There's like no, what to me is, because I'm a dysfunctional degenerate. That's my upbringing. But like, I had jobs, so I understand simple, standard professionalism things to do. And like, comedians would just show up, and only the hilarious comedians can get away with that. But like, these comedians, they're in that delusional bad comedian state, and they also have the bad personality as far as the back end business stuff. Like, it is an intense industry to make it. So I first of all, I'm pushing for you. I can't wait to see you blow up here soon, especially when you break that record.
Yeah,
like,
that's gonna be amazing.
I think, as there is like here in Cincinnati, Ohio, as there is like kind of the Midwest, nationwide, there's more need for comedy. So I think there kind of isn't a better time to start comedy than right now. Or like,
there's been a huge blow up post pandemic of like a resurgence of people doing stand up, but that happens every time. Like it's a pendulum, you know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
The industry has its own pendulum, and people will start, and then the longer you do it, the more people you see fall off. And there's a new class that comes behind you, and they get good, and they fall off, and it kind of just, that pendulum goes back and forth. I don't know, but it's like I was talking with a buddy of mine, very good friend of mine, someone I care about deeply, who's a comedian out of Columbus, Neff Johnson. And we kind of talk about just keeping each other honest, as far as, our internal pendulums, you know what I mean? Like, comedians, they're either on one side of the pendulum, you've got that imposter syndrome thing where you feel like you're never going to be funny again. You're never going to write something new and original and funny. And you'll never come up with a new bit. And then, it's the one side of it. And then on the other side of it, you've got just complete narcissism, right? So it's like, so you gotta, try to hang out as much as you can in that middle area. And if we go a little bit more towards that imposter syndrome side, or where you just feel like you're going to fail all the time, you'll never do anything. So, we tend to lean a little bit more in towards the narcissism side. I mean, comedy is a narcissistic thing to want to do. It doesn't mean you're a narcissistic person necessarily, but it's a narcissistic thing you want to do. To stand on stage for an hour and say, hey, listen to what I have to say, and don't just listen to it, but pay me to hear what I have to say, So we got to be a little bit into that, just to have the confidence to, sell what we're saying, the confidence on stage, the marketability off stage, to build your audience, and the marketability to get booked. So there's that pendulum, but it's like having really good and trusted people in your lives who understand the industry, where you can kind of hold each other into a checks and balance system, where it's like, all right, you can't listen to everybody. You can't, you got to tune out some of the noise, but you need to be very strategic about the people that you do, have those really honest conversations with, and, the hold each other accountable, side of it.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, I gotta get into this question before I forget. And then Philip, podcast, do too much here. But when did you find, because you're very open to communications, collaborations, suggestions, feedback, but when because like you just said, you have to take out the noise or filter out the noise. But like, when did you find the confidence in yourself to understand I can trust this person with their feedback? These people, you have a blessed day, and I want to look up to you. These other people, good for you. Like, when did you find your confidence in your lane of like, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to become in comedy?
Yeah. So I don't know about an exact when, but I know about the process. There's so many layers and levels to this industry, and we're all constantly trying to level up. You know what I mean? Like, and just get more consistent bookings, get more stage time when you are booked. You know, work with comics that are levels ahead of you, and work at better clubs, get longer runs. So it's like we're all constantly trying to level up, and I think definitely it's easy to weed people out. It's easy to say, I'm not gonna sit in that that area of negativity. I'm not gonna be around the people that are constantly causing drama, and talking shit and doing all that stuff. I'm not even. It becomes really easy to kind of get stuck in your scene, where you're at, and throw away sets because it turns into little roast battles, you know what I mean, with the other comics.
Yeah.
And I try to make a conscientious effort to not do that. You know what I mean? Like, having a quip or a reaction to the comic that came before you is normal and it's useful, because you have to address things on the fly in shows. So doing that at mics is fine. It's a fine muscle to stretch. But every mic, every show, sitting in the material and working in the material. So it's like making that conscious effort. But you just have certain people you click with, and some people that you mesh, like, and you look at, all right, they're either a peer, and I see the work that they put in and I respect the way they go about the work, right? Or they're a couple of levels ahead, and you're like, they're in the rooms I want to be in. They have experience, you know what I mean, working with this manager or looking at this contract, you know what I mean, and they've been there. And in the same time, I respect their work. I respect what they do on stage, but I respect in how they conduct their business off stage. And then you got to hit both of those marks, and then you still got to mesh with them. So those people become few and far between. And I try to give back, you know what I mean, to newer comedians and comics, that maybe aren't where I'm at yet. So I don't just throw everything out to everybody, but when someone asks, or when someone's talking about writing, or they have a question, I'm more than happy to be like, oh, well, try these writing exercises, or if you're finding yourself too wordy on stage, write out everything you say, or do a transcription of it online, from the audio, and try to rewrite that same bit in half of those amount of words, and then try to write it again in half of those amount of words, and get it down to where it's like you can tell the story, or you can tell the bit, or you can do the setup or whatever in 50 words or less. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's putting in work. So it's like, there's a bunch of those little things, and I try to give that to newer comics. And I have comics that will send me their tapes, and ask for feedback, and and I don't offer that I don't have time to do that for everybody, but for the ones that are passionate and they're good and I see potential in, and they're working and I respect what they're doing, and it's like, when they ask, showing up and giving back to them too, because I have people who give back to me in that way, you know what I mean? So we can all, it's so funny, because like it's so easy for things to get negative and things to feel negative, and trying to stay outside of the bullshit of that, and just be helpful and be a resource to other people when and where you can, not over committing yourself or depleting everything you have just to give to everybody else, because that's what managers do. That's not what companies do. But doing that for other people, and it's, I don't know, I think karma is real, and when you have a need like that and you're willing to give it to others, that need is fulfilled through other people too. So it's just trying to live in that positive space.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. It seems like you really got all of this like down to a science, and it seems like you really are about this craft, and
that is a very generous comment. And I feel like I am just fucking trying. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of days like, I don't know. Oh, I'm gonna sometimes you throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks.
Right.
That happens too. But I have, and I attribute this to the streak. Honestly, it's like I have a sense of structure and purpose every day, and it's like you have to make progress every single day. Like you're putting work in every single day. So
no excuses.
I like that sense of structure.
So why, I guess, with all of the work that you put into this, and just kind of seeing a little bit, getting to know you a little bit, why did you choose comedy as your art form? It seems like you could do a lot of things. What about comedy for you?
Comedy's like being on stage. It's the only thing that's ever really felt right. Like I've been successful in other areas. I was successful in corporate world. I've worked in galleries. Like I've lived overseas. Like I've done a bunch of different stuff. But it's like comedy's. I don't even know that you choose it. I think sometimes it chooses you, and when you feel more comfortable on stage than you do off, and that's something you're working and scraping just to get back to every single day. It's just something that, I don't know, it's the only thing that's really felt logical ever. So it's like that side of it. It's like, all right, now I know my sense of purpose in this. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I got the mic again. I'm back on stage.
Yo, timestamp this. This is where hey man, I'm gonna come in and talk. We are spirit bound to flesh. Yo, did you not just hear what the woman said? She's living in a corporate where she's done this and that, but that felt more true than her art. And why is that more true and more real than the reality and the substance and the materials? Because that's your fucking spirit, man. I love it. So that's amazing. You're able to channel your spirit into this passion and drive to still be amongst reality, but be in tune with your spirit also, and let your spirit get out, because there's nothing more fulfilling than doing that. And like so many specific, well, you said living abroad, so specifically Americans, we live to the money, we live to a certain lifestyle, and we just die that way. We just accept that, and they're always like, I'm in my 30s now. Well, I got a wife, but like, I'm certainly drinking every night. That's normal though, right? Like, it's not cute anymore. Your spirit is being killed right now because you're not living in fulfillment, because you're suppressing it to be in this false reality that you shouldn't be in, but it's what the Matrix wants you to be in. But I just want to say all that to say I'm very proud that you're able to be there and be where you're at now, and have missions and have both reality and spiritual going in tune and crushing shit. And that was a very I did not mean that with very aggressive Phillips now. But anyways, but no, that's just so awesome, because like a lot of people, and also I guess to a point, like, because you're doing it so full time now and you're out of the corporate world, was there like a you don't have to say specifics, but was there like a financial number or percentage you saved before fully committing? Or were you just like, you've kind of been okay financially to this degree in this lifestyle, now I can go pursue? Or like, when did that kind of transition? Because a lot of comedians, they have jobs and they have stable jobs, pay bills, but the comedy grind is very intense. But like, when did you get to a point to where you can commit to the way that you're committing now? And like, what, I guess like how, what, and why?
Yeah, I actually, so I got to a point in my job and in my career where, I'd been grinding for this company for a long time, and I was putting in 70, 80, 90 hours of work a week, plus still doing 40 or 50 hours of comedy. I never slept. I was having active panic attacks. Like, there was one point, it's like I was having a panic attack and I was in the hospital for it, and I'm getting a fucking ultrasound of my chest. Like, they're making sure it's okay. And I'm still on a fucking conference call. Like, I couldn't get off the fucking call for work. And I was like, I felt like I was literally killing myself, working so hard for this company. And then they wanted me to switch positions and do something that was gonna that I was good at, that I'd kind of done before, but they wanted me to do that, and it was going to be a lot of hours. It was going to be a lot of evening hours, and like it was going to cut even more into, time doing something that was fulfilling to me. And I just looked at it, and it's like, if I'm going to kill myself working to make somebody else a bunch of money, I would rather kill myself working to make that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it got to that, it literally came down to that point. And I remember being presented with this contract, like my employment contract with this new position and the money and, all this stuff. And I pushed it back to the CEO of the company. And I was like, this doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
What you're asking of me and what I've been giving for years, this doesn't add up to that. And I'm not willing to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I had some savings, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I sat down, I know my break even, for a month, I know exactly how much I need to make every month to pay my bills, and, how much is coming in and where I need to pay my bills and what, all that stuff. And it's hard. And I do like a bunch of side gigs, like I do voiceover work, and I build websites and EPKs for people. And I do that stuff. Even when I was in New York for 3 months, it's like, all right, I need to offset the cost of this. So in the mornings I was like walking dogs, and so I got a part-time job, walking dogs in the morning, and then I would go hit mics and go hit shows, and then, finally go to bed around 3, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning some days, and then be up at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and do it all over again. So it's like, all right, I'm putting in the same amount of hours as I was before between comedy and then the full-time corporate gig, but it's like now I'm at least doing it for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it towards something that, I care about and believe in. And I don't know. So it got to that tipping point where it was like, not doing that anymore. I'm just
the math ain't worth it.
math.
So you really have a hustler heart then. Like, you have that hustle in you even before, during, and now with comedy. So I'm just wondering, are you signed up for Hustlers University hosted by MBA? Is that where you get it from? Oh. Because I signed up a bunch of times, and I signed up for these TikTok alpha male life coaches, and they keep taking $5,000 a month from me, and they just keep telling me that you fucking suck, be better. And like, if you want a Bentley, just keep giving me money. Like, and it's give me a lot of drive and purpose to really achieve things in the world. So I was wondering, are you in similar classes?
I'm not in any of those classes. I don't know that that finances, like those finances, really add up either, Max. You might want to second guess some of that.
They tell me I'm going to get a Bentley. So.
No, I will say there are a couple of really practical things, like practical advice that you can do if you want to move into comedy full time. There's a couple.
This is very, very muy importante for all you young comedians out there. Right?
Take out your notepads.
If that is your goal, you don't need to have a regular checking account. Like, you can have a checking account, but that's not where you need to hold your money. You don't need to have a savings account to hold your money. You need to go to a financial advisor or a finance office. Like, I work with Edward Jones. Set up a money market account. So you can have your money, whatever savings you have, you can have it in a money market account. And then whatever you need to pay your bills with, you can transfer into your checking account to pay bills. There's no fees for transferring. So your money, think of it as like a super high yield savings account. So your money can make really good returns every month, and your money's, instead of it just sitting in there not making you anything, or it's like
You're going over 80% of comedians' heads right now. You said high yield savings, and that doesn't even, like HSY doesn't stand for high sexual. Yeah.
Well, that's like, they don't have to know everything. They don't have to know all this stuff. But go to a company like Edward Jones, and sit down and say, I want to set up a money market account.
Boom.
And once you do that, put your money into the money market account, so it's going to earn interest at a lot higher of a rate and a lot faster every month, so that instead of it just sitting into account not doing anything for you, you're getting extra money in there. So think of it like a 401k or something like that, but there's no penalties for taking money out. So you can transfer money into your checking account and pay what you need to pay, and live that way. But then everything that all the money you're not actively using is going to be making you money.
Got it.
So money market account, do that. And then you need to build in your savings into your monthly bills. So like whatever amount you need to save, whether it's 20% of what you have going out or whatever it is, build that in just like you pay your electric bill or your phone bill or whatever. You know what I mean? Have that money in there so that you're not getting into bad spending habits. Like, and that's really hard to do when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Do what?
I was going to say, especially in comedy, because you're at bars, you are social. You're going to, after a show, find a flirt, find a date. Oh shit, the money I made from the show is spent. Plus now I'm in the hole. Like,
but if you take 10% of everything you earn and put it in a money market account, and you've got an extra, you know what I mean, and that account's paying out 18 to 20% a year, you know what I mean? It's like you're making another 18 to 20% above what you made right now. So when you look at what you made last year, and that 20%, it adds up over time. So switching to a money market account, because there's no minimums on any of that stuff. You can start small, doing that so that your money starts making you money. That makes a big difference. And just little spending habits. Like one of the things I had to do, which was really difficult for me because I love to drink. One of the things that was really difficult to me is like I switched from the bourbon I love to well bourbon. That's you know what I mean? And that's a big change.
Sacrifice.
Yeah. So it's like, instead of ordering, Weller Green Label or Basil Hayden or, E.H. Taylor, like, all right, well, bourbon's good. And I know my tab at the end of the night is going to be a fraction of what I would have spent a year ago because my income's different. So it's like making those little spending habit changes where you can, don't eat out as much. Like cook dinner before you go to the show. Or, I mean, I've literally been on the phone with comedians at 2:00 in the morning and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm making a steak on the stove and a spinach salad and about to eat dinner. Because like, I didn't want to spend money at the bar or, buying fast food on the way home.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this segment, thank you, Dannielle, for hosting this segment of Above My Pay Grade. I'm talking about pay stuff because I'm too stupid to.
I love money stuff, so this was great for me. I'm big into investing and all of that, so that was good stuff. To now dive into more comedy stuff, I'm curious about your first show and why you decided to get up on the stage. Especially, I know it could be difficult being a woman in comedy, and how all of that happened, and what actually made you take that step onto there.
So my first show that I ever did, it was actually, this is kind of a crazy story. So, I was bartending and I was not a comedian, but all my friends were comedians. Oh. And there was, a gentleman who's not in comedy anymore. So I'm not gonna name his name, but there was a gentleman who was putting on a show and he was featuring and he had a headliner coming, and the opener, wasn't going to make it. They had transportation issues. They weren't going to make it. They couldn't get anyone to fill in. And he came to me and he was like, Dannielle, he was like, I know you know what the club wants to hear. You tell us funny shit all the time. Like, I need you to do this show. And I was like, no, I'm not a comic. And he's like, no, I don't have anyone else. I need you. Yeah. And he was like, literally just go up there, say what the club wants to hear, and tell this story, and this story that you told us all last week, and you crack us up with all your antics and your shit, and then bring me up, and me, you know how to bring me up. So I was like, if this was anyone else asking, I would literally tell them to fuck off so fast. But I did it. So the first time I ever did a show, ever went on stage, I did 15 minutes.
Damn.
And I got a lot of laughs, and I loved it, and it was incredible. You know what I mean? So it was
crazy.
Like, and I talked to him afterwards. He's like, you got to start writing, and you got to do this regularly. He's like, because I want you to go on. Like, you're gonna have to go on. Now, so. I'm gonna put you on shit. So start fucking coming up with material. Yeah, and I fell in love with it, and so it's like, I don't know, and it was one of those things. It was like I done some plays and things like that, like in school and stuff growing up, and I actually was like in this little theater program at one point, and we did. I mean, I was real young. It was an all-female production of the true story of Cinderella, and I played Prince Bob, who was like the dumb Prince Charming, you know what I mean? But I wanted to do that because I thought it'd be fun to wear a suit and have a sword fight on stage. So it's like I'd done theater, and I'd done some of those things, and I had a background in art, and I went to art school. I went to grad school for fine art, and so I'd had a history of that. I had no issues public speaking ever. It was always something I felt very comfortable with, being in front of people and doing artist panels and doing all this stuff. And it's like, and I've always just been naturally very funny, and a bit of a storyteller, and definitely a writer. Like, being a writer has, I've always been a writer. Even when I took a break from comedy for a while, like, I was writing. So it's like,
awesome.
I wrote 3/4 of a novel that's sitting in my closet all printed out, but it's like that feeling, and that of being on stage and fucking having something to say, you know what I mean? That's funny, but also interesting, or makes people think about things differently, or as you talked about being a female comic, or things that a female would not typically talk about. I don't just get on stage and talk about my pussy the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, not that all females do that.
Thanks for coming on, Dannielle.
But it's like, when I look at the topics and stuff that I deal with on stage, like, I talk about guns, I talk about capital punishment, I talk about rape, I talk about healthcare, I talk about relationships and divorce, and not having kids, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I talk about politics. Like, I like talking and being able to talk about anything. And I don't think that female comics should be put in this box where they only talk about certain topics.
Right.
So I have fucking something to say, and
saying it.
And it comes out funny. Like,
I love it.
I want to quit Cummings. I'm trying to understand this.
So it's funny. I actually did a radio interview. Oh, God, it was probably 10 months ago at this point. I don't know, something like that. I did a radio interview, and the host of that radio show, he's a radio guy. He's not a comedian, but he has like a couple of comics who like co-host with him, and then they bring a guest on, and he interviews all different kinds of people, like writers and actors and people who work in the parks. I mean, just like anybody, he'll interview anybody. But he actually went and looked at a set. Like, he watched, like, I think it was like a 35-minute set or something like that. And then he watched a bunch of my reels on Instagram, and then he read my bio, and he was, asked me, he's like, what comedian, do you think you're most like? And I was like, nobody. I don't know that I'm like anybody. Like, I don't know that, and he's like, I had a hard time really nailing down who I could compare you to. He's like, which is honestly great. That's ideal, because you don't want to be the next somebody. You want to be the first of this type of person. Exactly. He's like, but if I had to make, an I can't say that word.
Amalgamate.
Amalgamism.
Yeah.
Whoa,
How the
hey,
fuck you say that word? If they made, he said if you take Ron White and his mannerisms, especially because he's like you drink throughout your set, so you have that kind of
he's very
conversational,
Southern
yeah,
cowboy about his.
you have that conversational kind of gritty, like badass, like gonna drink and sit there and throw back bourbon like it's nothing throughout your entire set. You have that about you. So he's like, you have that Ron Whitishness about you, mannerism wise. But then he's like, material wise, he's like, the closest thing I could compare you to is like a really young Roseanne Barr and her kind of don't give a fuck. And I'm going to talk about real things. I'm going to talk, you know what I mean? And finances and, just whatever. Like, I'm going to go through that shit. And so it's like, that's the closest, he's like, so, a combination of early Roseanne Barr and then Ron White. But I've had people say Whitney Cummings to me, like early Whitney Cummings, mostly because I don't get up there and just bash men. I think men are great. I love men. You know what I mean? But I don't just bash and shit on women either. I shit on everyone equally. Like that's, you know what I mean? Everyone's fair game. So there's been a few comparisons over the years, but I like that no one can really pin down one specific, oh, you're like this.
All right, you're Dannielle. That's who you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going off this, we got to do this with every comic. But what's your Mount Rushmore? Obviously, it doesn't have to be any order, but...
Oh, fuck. I can give you like a top 10. Can I do that? Can I do a top 10? Can I have 10 on my Mount Rushmore?
Do them all.
God. Lenny Bruce.
No, that name yet. That dude is fucking brilliant.
Oh, he's great.
His writing was fantastic.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Chappelle, Rock, Louis C.K., Bill Burr, Wanda Sykes, Kathleen Madigan. Love all them. Roy Wood Jr., Sidney Castillo. Those are guys who are like working and, killing it and, have something to say and are funny as fuck. You got to throw Ali Sadiq in there just because of like he's a masterclass in storytelling.
Yeah, I love his speech too. He's just very smooth.
Oh, and his physical comedy. You know what I mean? Like, Chappelle does great physical comedy on stage. Like he's usually very laid back, but so you notice any of the little peculiar, changes in the way he'll take a stool and all of a sudden, he's transformed into a paraplegic just by the way he sits on the stool. You know what I mean? So there's like things like that. But Ali Sadiq, he's, a master in storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, I feel like I'm missing people. I don't even know how many I named.
I don't even know where you're at.
Patrice O'Neill. God, how do you not name Patrice in that? You know what I mean? Like Paul Mooney. Like there's so many fucking incredible comedians. So my Mount Rushmore is very full.
It's a couple mountains. It's fine.
So out of that list, I would say if I had to limit that list to 4,
I couldn't do it.
Bruce, Chappelle, O'Neill, Burr, like
yeah,
that's
hard.
I'd put Carlin over Burr. Yeah, George Carlin over Burr, I think.
See, and so I always think like, all right, they need to make me laugh. Like I want to be doubled over, gut busting laugh, right? But I also want to think about shit differently because of them. I want to still be thinking about their bits 3 days later, or 4 days later, or 4 months later, or 4 years later. You know what I mean?
That's what Donnell Rawlings has done to me. I've seen
Donnell Rawlings is fantastic. He's great.
He's electric.
He is. He's incredible. I got to go play kickball with Donnell over Memorial Day weekend, and like he does.
I tried that with you then.
Maybe, yeah. He does
I was Team Creeks.
Oh, I was on the streets team.
Oh, you're with my brother then.
Yeah, we kicked your ass.
Yes, you did.
By a lot. Like, I mean, so I was catching for that kickball game.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't want to run.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel like it. And I got way too competitive in that kickball game. Like, I remember like Wyatt Lutz was like, Dannielle, are you a fucking professional kickball player or are you a comedian? Like, what the hell? Because I was like sliding bases and shit like that. Like, there was a really tall guy on first base and he wasn't touching the bag, and I slid between his legs in order to get safe on the base. I was all scratched out. I was like, why am I being this competitive for a fucking football game?
Well,
so,
do you remember? Because this is the highlight of that afternoon. Was trying to catch a outfield ball. Some out of shape white guy ran into this like tiny black girl, and her weave popped off.
Oh yeah, it flew. It flew.
Hilarious. And her
it was so funny.
It was like covered her up.
Oh, it's so funny. But Dannielle kicked off that game, right? Like he was the first one up to kick. And I was standing behind the plate. And so I asked him, I was like, Dannielle, I was like, did you stretch? Did you get loosened up? You know, did you get good and stretch? He's like, oh yeah, I stretched. I'm like, that's good. That's good. Did you fucking pray? Because that's what you really need to be doing. So he just started cracking up laughing. So like we would just talk shit every time he got up to kick. It was a lot of fun.
But that was because I saw Dannielle at a few the Yellow Spring concerts, Chappelle's concerts.
Mm-hmm.
But that specific show, because he did Wiley's that like probably weekend.
Yeah. R.I.P. Wiley's.
Yeah, R.I.P. But they'll probably come back. I don't know.
Well, Chappelle bought the building.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Chappelle bought it like a year ago.
Wow. That's what I thought.
The club's closed, and I know there's been some issues with him being able to get a liquor license for the firehouse. So he may be having a second location. I don't know. That's my guess. That's not official news from me.
I mean, it's funny to see, like, because there was an RIP date and so many comedians posting RIP Wiley's. And then, like, just last week, I saw people, like, performing at Wiley's. I'm like, that's a word. We're just doing the farewell tour, like Kiss right now.
Right.
But no, what I was trying to get to is Dannielle that night. And I've seen him before live. I'm a big fan. Seen all the people. The word electric cannot be said enough. He was explosive, especially in that tiny room.
Yeah.
You have tiny low ceilings. I don't know if it sits maybe 200 people, something like that, but smaller venue. And he was just explosive. It was insane. So that's why it's kind of hard to do like Mount Rushmore's and top tens.
It is hard. It's so fucking hard. You know what kills me too? I actually got a call last week from a manager that, you know, I'm kind of working with, and to go open for Dannielle in fucking Fort Wayne, Indiana. And it was like last minute and I was already booked. And I was like, I could do Sunday. I was like, I'll drive 5 hours to go do 2 shows with him on Sunday.
Just to hang with him.
And he was like, well, let's, you know, we'll look at another weekend or another booking where you can do the full run. Kind of thing. It was like, fuck. It's like you want to be booked, but you also, you know, you want to be constantly booked, but you also want to be able to jump on those opportunities when they show up. And, but my buddy Neff, who I was talking about earlier, he actually went and featured for Dannielle. So he got the gig, which is great. And he could not have a better comic go. But he fucking killed it, and he did great. And Dannielle's actually running a new hour. He's running a whole new hour of material right now.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening. Yeah, he's a killer. He's crushing it, and I hope to see you open for Dannielle too. But that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah, we need some, you know, kick-ass women on stage. You know, open up for these guys. It's funny. I still see, and I don't think that it's like, I don't think people are boxes that you should check off. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think that any person fits in a box. And I know that you try to have a diverse group of comics for shows, especially when you have like showcase shows and stuff like that. They're like, all right, do we have a white guy? Do we have a black guy? Do we have a woman? Do we have someone from the LGBT? You know what I mean? So it's like, but it's like, we're not fucking boxes. Like put people on that are funny and going to have good, you know, put on a good show, and their work isn't going to step on each other. And the momentum's going to, like, think about that side of it. Mm-hmm. But the part of me that benefits from them wanting to have a female on the show, I'm not going to say don't do that either, because fucking book me. Like,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
How dare you? But also, yes, please.
like it's like just put on a good show, but yeah, no, put me on
But
it. Like
I'm part of the good show. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I do need to get back to marketing, but you guys can keep cooking if you'd like. But it's been amazing to meet you, Dannielle.
Where are you based out of? Are you in
I'm in
Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
Well? And
Yeah.
are you? I don't know anything about you. I feel like this whole fucking conversation's about me.
Wait, I was gonna ask, like, do you have any questions for us?
Are you a comedian? Let's start there.
No. So I am more. So Max is our comedian expert. I am more of the. I do everything else. I'm like, I do marketing. I'm in music. I'm an actor. I'm into like crypto and stuff like that. So I'm like,
Nice.
I like to do a lot of things, but comedians in general, I've always enjoyed stand up because it's one of the art forms that I have not tried to pursue myself. So I can actually sit down and enjoy it. Like whenever I go see a concert or I go see a movie, I'm always thinking about all the different things.
Well, Donald Glover did all of that and
Yes.
did comedy too. So
He did do comedy too, but I just don't know. For me, I just like to enjoy comedians, and I didn't know how much of an art form it was until Max brought it to me, and we started doing these podcasts, and I've been able to talk to comedians. I'm like, this is amazing. I didn't realize how much work you guys put into all of this, and like the thinking that goes through like the breathing and the words you choose and how you're standing and where you're standing and why you do
every aspect
all of that.
It, yeah.
It's been
Your voice
blowing
is
my
an
mind.
instrument, and yep.
Yes, I've been loving it.
Well, he saw my first 5 minutes at Bricky's Comedy on YouTube, and he was like, wow, I'm inspired to be a comedian. I actually yelled at the crowd for 5 minutes, and I'm trying to kill myself now! On that note, we'll go wrap it up. Dannielle, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Philip, I'm glad you're gotten into, meeting and seeing the kind of behind the scenes of the comedy world. I would love to have you come out to a show.
I would love to do that.
So
Yes.
follow me on Instagram. Let's link up when you come out.
I have 1,000 more days, right? To come see
I
you?
have
Wait, I'm my phone right here.
1,300 and something days.
Now.
I don't know.
Right.
Something like that.
I'm gonna post up the Instagram because I did get it, and I'm gonna send you a follow while I do it.
Love it.
So everybody, there she is.
Yeah.
Is it blurry? There we go.
There it is. Hold it.
Hold it.
Perfect.
Awesome.
There's moments. They'll figure it out. That's perfect. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. Definitely come out to a show. We'll hang out and shoot the shit afterwards.
Get some bourbon.
Of course. And Max, I'll do what?
I said, and get some bourbon.
Drink bourbon. Always.
Good.
Always with the bourbon. And yeah, Max, I'll try to. I know we've looked at some dates and stuff like that, so we'll link up soon on that. But
absolutely, there's a lot more Marines after next week. So yes.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah.
Keep writing, keep fucking killing it. Drink good bourbon, be kind to each other. That's all I got.
Hell yeah, do it a lot.
Coming on.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.